Happening now. We want to welcome our viewers from across the United States and around the world. This is the EdTech Situation Room. Good morning, good day, good evening. This is EdTech Situation Room, episode number 357 on August 27th, 2025. My name is Jason Neiffer, and I am the Executive Director of Montana Digital Academy.
And you're a traveling man who's been probably maybe meeting yourself coming and going.
And we can't even get the show introduced.
You did pretty well, though. You did good for about 30 seconds.
Thank you very much. I'm the Executive Director of the Montana Digital Academy, which is the state virtual school located on the beautiful University of Montana campus, located in fabulous Western Montana. But tonight, I am joining you from the Magic City, the largest city in the state of Montana, Billings, Montana, where I'm going to be working with 3 high school faculties tomorrow about AI. And so I'm really excited to have a day of speaking engagements. And I just love working with teachers. And so it's a real great opportunity for me tomorrow to talk about some of the work that Montana Digital Academy and the Frontier Learning Lab is doing with artificial intelligence. But I could go on and on about that, but rather, good evening, Dr. Wesley Fryer. How are you doing this evening, sir?
I am doing well, Jason. I am continuing to teach middle school media literacy and STEM here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'd love to hear more about the Frontier Learning Lab. I've been, seeing a few posts about it. I am back to teaching my complement of 4 middle school sections to computer applications, media literacy classes, a web design class, and a computer programming class. And it was good to learn a lot last semester about AP Computer Science, but I'm very happy to be back teaching middle school, and very, very thankful where we are. There's a lot going on in the world, and it's not only nice to teach, but it's also nice to be able to be involved with some different organizations that I think are doing some good work in this time. So, and I can't wait for the Geek of the Week. I've got a little video I got to publish and a blog post I need to write about it. But man, your home assistant advice, so good. And I could talk half the show about that. So if we want to if we run out of other things, I'll just talk about my Geek of the Week for a while. But I bet we'll have some things to talk about.
Yeah, I can't imagine that you and I would scratch for things to talk about. And I will say that something that I've kind of come to terms with lately that I've really had to do is that, I'm a tinkerer. And in fact, there's a blog post somewhere inside of me that may come out on the Frontier Learning Lab Substack, frontierlearninglab.substack.com. And it's about that, like, we've been talking a lot about playing with AI, and I still think that's the best metaphor. And I think this year we're still working on scheduling, but we are highly likely to host 5 play dates across the state this year. And we've got 3 of them scheduled and working on 2 more, which I think is just a wonderful opportunity to work with teachers and give them an opportunity to be in a supportive space so that they can truly start using these tools with experts available. But I've been thinking a lot about tinkering, and I actually, had a lengthy back and forth with ChatGPT last week about this. And one of the things that I have come to the reality about, and there's not a lot of people that I can talk to about this kind of stuff. So, is that, tinkering is great, and I'm convinced it's good for my brain, and it's good for my professional work. In fact, tinkering is what allowed me to have the skill set that allowed me to contribute right away to the Montana Digital Academy startup in 2010. But I need to not tinker with stuff I need a core set of things that just work all the time, so that, I'm not constantly tinkering with that stuff. I can tinker all I want to with all the other stuff. And you mentioned Home Assistant. I can't wait to see what you set up, but that's a good example of something. When I was setting up Home Assistant in my parents' home, to set some sensors and things to help my mom out with a progressive disease that my dad has, that it was, my mom was kind of in awe of it. And what I told her is, I said, this was really my pleasure, right? Like, this is something that I enjoyed doing, and it was an opportunity. I wouldn't have a reason to purchase some of the equipment that I did. And I think the tinkerer's mindset is very valuable. And, I think the same is true of folks that tinker with cars or tinker with home improvement, or, it's just a tinker ethic, I think is a really, really useful thing to have as a mindset and as a way to approach things. And to be very honest, I think that tinkering is something that I brought to the classroom too. And in fact, tinkering is what my staff does extremely well, right? Like over time, a lot of things we do are making small changes here and there to working systems to see if we can't slowly nudge them along. And sometimes that's a split decision, usually a low stakes decision because we don't want to mess with working systems. But still, that I think that's an important piece of this.
Yeah. Well, maker spaces and STEM labs, they've been around for a while, and it's kind of amazing to me how hard it is to change education. And you and I have been around long enough that we've heard all kinds of talks about School 2.0 and all of these things. In fact, Chris Lehman and Zach Chase, and I could drop this link in, have a good podcast reflecting 10 years later that after they wrote the School 2.0. Oh my gosh, it's really challenging in many cases to shift practice. But I think there are niches, and I'm thankful to work in one of those niches in an innovation space. And I hope that we are cultivating that tinkering mindset, because dispositions of critical thinking, of curiosity, of trying to figure something out, solve a problem, bring the knowledge that you have to bear, and then collaborate with other people. And now even collaborate with AI. I've been doing some more thinking about what we discussed last week with these sort of they are debatable, but they're for me, they're less debatable AI uses. And I am telling you what, troubleshooting, technical things like, Linux things, virtual server stuff, things that have logs, but also this whole experience with the smart assistant. But even if you are looking for a new tool, right? I'm doing that regularly. Like, I know some ways to do stuff, but hey, ChatGPT, is there another free way or better way that I could do this? And, I am not going to be able to comb the web the way that AI systems can. So yeah, it's having a tinkering mindset, having an opportunity to play and share. And I really think we need to get back to those sort of early EdTech blogger days, even the pre-Twitter days, because we have these tools, but the march of centralized algorithmic feed, social media, attention economy, all that stuff, Twitter, X, Facebook, it's become so mainstream that I think maybe, and I'll just speak for myself, I've sort of forgotten in some cases, the serendipitous pleasure and benefit of being able to use those collaborative tools. And I think a lot of folks are lament the end of Twitter, or at least what Twitter was. But we still have these tools. We can still publish on our own spaces. I hope you do blog on the Frontier Learning Labs, Substack. I think that we have to keep experimenting. We have to keep tinkering. This is what innovation is on the edge, right? It's a lot of trying stuff, but also seeing what other people are doing. And there's such benefit to awareness, right? Like, because if you hadn't told me about this smart home assistant, I don't know, maybe I would have found out about it. But, this podcast was my catalyst for learning about that. And then it's led to some really cool, and very geeky, I'll admit, moments I'm sharing with my wife. It's nice to get to talk to somebody else about it too. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what do we want to talk about? What's on your mind?
Well, I have dropped a few links. So if folks want to go to edtechsr.com/links, we do have a link to a Google Doc, which has a few links. So there's a few AI articles. Apple's got an event coming up that they've announced. I got a few security articles, which actually are related to AI. Something about the James Webb Space Telescope, Geeks of the Week. So we sometimes will have a absolute, deluge of articles that we'll be talking about. Sometimes there's a few less. But maybe we could talk about the Apple event. Not that we know much at all about it yet, and then kind of check in maybe with where we are on our ecosystem, uses of devices. That would be kind of good. You probably need to write a blog post about your Road Warrior travel bag, right? Because I bet you've continued to refine it.
It was so finely tuned in February 2020, right? Like I had the right stuff and the right bag and that was true of also my luggage, and everything was so nailed down. And then the pandemic, and and it wasn't just that I wasn't traveling. It's, there was, just a lot in my head during that time. And then I started slowly, pulling apart my system because I was using stuff out of the bag and that sort of thing. And then the bag got dusty and, and that sort of thing. But yeah, I should at some point. I still occasionally bring a device or two more than I should, right? Like, oh, I'll use this for this purpose. Then are
you more than one laptop kind of thing, or
yeah? And the other thing I'll say, and then it got me on a rabbit hole. One of the things that's really important to me is internet access, and I do have. In fact, I'll just mention this because it's really interesting. I had been experimenting. I have a secondary phone that's an Android phone. It's just a very inexpensive Pixel A device from 2 or 3 years ago that's really great. And I just like staying up on Android, to be really honest. And but I've always, I've used temporary SIMs. A couple of years ago, I found a source for SIMs that were intended for travelers. And that were cheap in bulk, so 5 gig sim over 30 days or something, so I'd always have internet access. And then for a while I was also using a Visible eSIM, and Visible is a Verizon subcarrier that's owned by Verizon, but basically it's unlimited data for $25 a month, and you get capped out when you use it in a hotspot at 10 megabits down, but that's fast enough for even YouTube video streaming, so it was never really a problem. Well, I discovered a Mint Mobile a couple of months back, and I did get a really good deal on like 4 months of Mint Mobile service. And again, I go from line to line to line on this one. I just figure out whatever's cheapest. But they also have a new service where you pay like $9 or $10 more a month, and you get a second SIM that's on a different network. And so now I have a 2-SIM cell phone that's a Verizon SIM and an AT&T SIM. Through US, no, it's not Mint Mobile, it's US Mobile. My apologies. And basically unlimited data, including unlimited hotspot at full speed. I'm paying like $41 a month for it. It's next to nothing.
Oh my gosh.
I can't even get a hotspot for that cheap from either of those two carriers. In fact, I've looked because I love T-Mobile. It's by far the best service I've ever used on mobile. But you get outside the main cities or the interstate in Montana, and it's just not a reality. And so, especially when I'm traveling for work, it's nice to have access, particularly to the Verizon network, but also AT&T is nice to have access as well. And now I have a SIM basically anywhere there's cell service now, and that's for my job and for what I do, and as much I travel around Big Sky country, that's a huge deal. And it's the little things like that over time you start to put together the right package of software and hardware and the right bag, and I used to be jealous of what I considered to be kind of like, A-list EdTecher types that was traveling all the time. I'm not sure if I could handle that now. And even 10 years ago, I'm not sure if I could have handled it, right? And you lived that lifestyle for a while, Wes, and I imagine that there were times when, you just really wanted to sleep in your own bed. And
my wife just wanted me to stay home too.
Yeah, totally, right.
We had our kids were kind of younger then at that point too.
Yeah,
so
I can't even imagine actually. Like that's tough, right? But this is kind of the still having a job and health insurance version of
absolutely
of that, right?
So important.
Yep. And I love,
Well, and making a difference at a larger scale, right? You're at a state level and you're at a national level in terms of the influence that you're able to have from your seat. So
well, and I just, and I will say that I wish there was any discernible order to the comments I'm making tonight, but the I'll mention briefly the Frontier Learning Lab. We talked about it briefly earlier this year on the podcast, but the Montana legislature gave MTDA funding to open up an edge technology lab. And in fact, we just hired our first director for the lab. Her name is Caitlin Byers. She is a rock star and came from our distance learning staff and has really done outstanding work already on trying to envision how we adapt learning environments, not to be AI resistant, but at least AI savvy. Because I don't think resistance is honestly all that possible. But one of the things we've had the opportunity, or we will have the opportunity to do, is be in a lot of schools across the state. So we trained a couple of weeks ago in a school that's about an hour south of Missoula called Hamilton. Wonderful town, the Bitterroot Valley, and just the energy we're getting from teachers when you see that click, when they finally see that AI can be a really important part of your tool bag instead of just a method for students to bypass your learning activities.
A thing to fight, basically.
Yeah. So it's been great. And in fact, there's a photo somewhere that I think actually got released on our Substack yesterday, both of us with a stupid grin on our face. So excited after leaving, one of our trainings, because it's really a joy to be around teachers as they're exploring this stuff.
Yeah, I just dropped a link in the chat and I put it into our miscellaneous as well for the Substack for the Frontier Learning Lab. And I'll tell a quick story about just what you were saying, using your tools. Here, I can share my screen, and I could put a link for this on too. But I have been using mainly ChatGPT to, let's see if I can do share your screen, allow for screen sharing. Don't you love? All right, at least I'm on my own laptop where I can do this. And then it's going to say probably restart. Later. What's interesting is it says it won't do it, and then it usually does. Okay, maybe. All right, maybe I'm not going to share a picture. I could hold it up. Basically, I created some visualizations to go with my lesson today for web design class. And it is amazing how much better ChatGPT has become in the past few months, where it was always misspelling words, never perfect, always something I had to go into Canva and, put some other text on and stuff like that. This was a video called The 7 Laws of Good Web Design. And so I asked it to summarize the transcript for this 15-minute video and then create an infographic and made it very text heavy. I said, no, I want graphics. I want pictures. I want it in the style of a cartoon or comic. And I want it to, be very friendly for middle school students. I want it to visually communicate. And so it did that, and it was fantastic. And then a new lesson that I am doing, which is I'm calling it Google Site Milestone 1. So there's several different pages and things I want my kids to put on. And again, same kind of thing, visual images, key ideas, amazing. And I taught from those infographics today, which were actually better than the video, which we had, which was longer and led to some good conversation. There were summaries underneath these icons and words. It's just amazing. It's unbelievable. The power that it gives us as teachers, in this case, to visually communicate, to summarize ideas. I certainly want my students to read what I put into Canvas, but the reality is, and I'm teaching, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students, we work on that, reading, but when we're trying to get an overall view of a concept, an infographic, something visual, icons that go with words, all of that is so powerful. And there is no way that I would have had time. I could have made this on my own. Absolutely. I could have made it in Canva. I could have made it in Google Draw or just slides, whatever. But I didn't have that time today, but I did have time to take my lesson and copy and paste it and then iterate a little bit with the AI. And then I got something wonderful that really directly impacted the lesson that we had today. I'm over the moon about it. It's just so crazy because I'm gonna knock over my drink. Because yeah, I mean, last year it was not this good. Last year I would do this and I'd be, oh man, that's not great. And I had to take it in, like I said, take it into Canva. And every time I had to fix something because it would misspell something. And I'm not going to put something with misspelled words up as an instructional material. So yeah, I'm just over the moon with it. And I'm frankly jealous that Montana has the resource that you all are creating, because I think that having organizations and individuals that can serve as catalysts for us to share, to collaborate, and that idea of playing with AI. In fact, this really may encourage me, because I've been kicking around the ideas of an ed camp, and but we've also been talking about an AI play date and something that we're going to do regionally. I'm renewing my Apple Distinguished Educator involvement. I just reached out to them, and there's some few requirements and things like that. But collaborating with folks beyond your organization, outside, but being able to share, use these tools. And yes, there's all kinds of ethical stuff and questions and a hype cycle. And I don't know if the AI bubble economically is about to bust. My dad, who I think may have been on here a little earlier, called me today about the show, but also to tell me about NVIDIA, right, and how high their stock is and all this. And yeah, I mean, the economy, it is almost an AI economy, which is a little scary as far as how much the economy is relying on it. But the hype cycle is not all hype. I am here to tell you, as a user, as a current classroom teacher, it is not all hype. And the things that we are able to create and share and use are they can be pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. And and the thing I think about too, and to be clear, almost every audience of teachers that we work with has a cynic or two in the crowd, and I'm glad. Honestly, I feel like that education becomes better when teachers knock around ideas, right? And that's the optimistic, retired debater in me, of which Dr. Fryer is as well. That I think that we get better answers when we test out ideas, and when we argue in the in the idea sense. Like, I think that's super important. But the bottom line is that we didn't get a say whether or not students would start using AI, because of the shocking numbers of gazillions of dollars that have been put into it in just the last 3 years alone. That has settled that conversation for us. And I don't want students learning about AI from TikTok and Snapchat. I think that's that the right things aren't happening there. And even YouTube, like, I will say, from the standpoint of finding out more about AI, I do watch a couple of really great creators on YouTube that I'll watch weekly, because they do kind of news rounds.
Who are they, by the way? Because just
Matt,
that sharing the YouTube influencers we're watching is very valuable.
Yeah, the main one is Matt Wolf, and I believe that his website's called Future Tools IO, and he does a weekly kind of newscast, where he covers all of the AI news over the week. And it's been wild the last 6 to 8 weeks, because it feels like almost every week he's talking about how this week had an insane number of huge announcements, and he's a great creator. I'm trying to think. Sabrina Romanoff is another one that I watch. Now, her shtick is more like how you can use AI to make money. And what I think is really interesting about that is, that's actually where I've gotten better information about how the tools work than any education channel, right? And that's one of the reasons why I'm a little worried about kind of an ed tech approach to these tools. Not that it's not valuable, But I do think that if you're really looking to learn about the tools, and this is where it's so much different than the internet era. The internet era was pretty figure outable if you just had the commitment to tinker, right? And time and opportunity and experience meant a lot on the internet, to a point to where you kind of clicked in what was now possible, and that was very different. It got more complex in the Web 2.0 era. It was getting more complex in the Web 3.0 era. But the bottom line is that, I think time and opportunity meant that you could develop some skills in that region. I think the AI era is very different for a variety of reasons, but if you want to learn, what's possible, the folks that are, putting up YouTube channels on, how to make your first million with AI, or how to be the first one person, billionaire or $1 billion valuation company. I think that rhetoric is challenging for sure, right? Like, I don't want to approach AI in that way, because, well, I mean, I'm a public servant, right? I'm going to do public service stuff. But that all said, I also, very strongly believe that digging down deep into this is really important. And I'm just not getting that depth, from kind of the traditional, EdTech influencers. And I also dare to say too that I just don't think the AI saves you time in fact, I think that that's a problematic narrative at this point, because I just don't know if time savings enough helps teachers kind of jump over that gap of knowledge and understanding of the tools. But also, you probably saw the MIT study out last week that 95% of companies weren't getting return on investment. I have not been able to get a hold of the original study. I did apply for access to the study itself. Ethan Mollick did cover the study.
He has a good write up about it.
Yeah, really great write up about it. But the part, of course, that no one's talking about is that the 5% that did feel like they were getting value, and I think there's probably some setup problems with the study too. And quoting 95% is, I don't believe the study was quantitatively
limited sample. There's just all kinds of issues with that should prevent us from trying to generalize, which unfortunately in the mainstream media is often what they want to do, is see something like that.
And for that matter, I mean, what I've also found out too is that, I just think it's way too early for us to make big, broad pronouncements about what AI does or doesn't do to your brain, what AI does or doesn't do to learning. It's just too soon to be able to make broad pronouncements like that. But whether you're pro or anti-AI, and again, I identify as an AI centrist, like grabbing one study and then, putting a bunch of exclamation marks behind a hot take, a good conversation does not make. And the part that I thought was really interesting is that apparently the 5% that said they were getting value out of it, their most typical strategy was that their employees were coming in with ideas, and they wanted to find a way to take an inelegant process and make it more elegant with AI, or take something that was rote and not worth the time they were spending on it. They wanted to automate that with AI. And that, I think, from that process, like, that's what I want teachers to be able to do too, right? Like, I don't think a top-down mandate in a district makes any sense. And in fact, I remember working with teachers and districts that did say that all teachers need to integrate the internet in their lessons. That doesn't do jack squat, and in fact, if anything, leads to bizarre learning environments. But you got to empower teachers to figure it out, and then start to use their creativity and their seat of the pants wisdom to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's about building cultures of collaboration and cultures of learning. And, those definitely have existed and still exist online, and they are existing in some schools as well. But, the reflections, the what really moves people. I mean, it's not the headlines and what the attention economy says. It's a lot of times it's experience, and it's what other trusted colleagues and trusted voices, say and share. And that's where I would as we've said time and again, encourage people to play with these tools, use these tools, especially utilize them in domains that you have brought, deep expertise in. And, that idea of enhancing so much. I mean, I didn't ask AI, I didn't ask ChatGPT today, hey, can you just come up with this new lesson for me for my web design class, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I could have said, hey, these are the goals I have, brainstorm. But I had written out my lesson, and then I wanted enhancements to it visually, and I got them. So I was able to drop the links in there. I posted them on Flickr. I don't think, it's just weird. Yeah, my Flickr posting days are still here.
I was just gonna say, oh, you're the one.
Of course. Well, hey, I have 50,000
Well, yeah.
pictures there. So, okay, I think I can do this. I think it's going to let me share a tab. Look at that. Look at that. Okay, so there is the
I love that graphic.
Yes, this is my Canvas assignment to take my kids through a couple days, and we're going to call these milestones. One of the things that I find myself as a middle school teacher, challenged with is I can create so much work for myself if I create too many assignments.
Yeah.
And so with web design, giving students some structure and sort of, it's a low bar, high ceiling, because I've got this year, I just have all 7th and 8th graders. Sometimes I'll have 6th graders in there too. But, here's the minimum requirements, but then go further. Their music pages to really convince me to listen to that music, persuade me. That's the purpose in the audience. But again, this was an iterated infographic. This wasn't something that it spit out right away. In fact, the version it put out first had almost all the text from my assignment in it. I was like, no, I don't want you to do that. And it fixed it. It corrected it. And if I can go the right direction, I may go the wrong direction here. Oops, I'm going to click on the wrong. I'm trying to click on StreamYard. Okay, there you go. So here's, quote, the 7 laws of good web design. But again, we use this to discuss these today in class and to explore them. And that's one of the big things I'm trying to help my students do is we're analyzing different websites, trying to develop a vocabulary for, how it's okay. You like it. Why? It's good. Why? What are the words that describe what's good and what's positive about it? And so anyway, this was just one YouTube creator's ideas, but certainly something that I would not have had time to summarize and create and do in that format. So yeah, I would encourage folks, if you're not currently doing that, finding chances, ways to share with colleagues. I do want to talk. Well, we can talk about a few of the articles. I played with Nano Banana. Have you played with Nano Banana?
I have played with Nano Banana.
And there's a website now. You can just play with it. Yep. But before we do, what have you set up for the format? Like when y'all were in Hamilton with the Learning Lab and you did that workshop, how did you sort of structure the time you had with teachers?
Well, that's an excellent question. So here's what we've landed on as of late, that if we can have 2 trainers available, and that's a luxury, right? I mean, it won't, especially once we start working more across the state, getting 2 people, for a half day or a whole day in a district is a tough call. But, we've done the same thing a couple of times now. It starts off with an hour and a half joint presentation about AI in the world, right? Like, where are we at right now on, August 27, 2025. And what we have found is that certainly more teachers are aware of it. And also many, many, many teachers are playing with it occasionally, right? But they're still not very savvy with it, in that, they're not using it regularly, at least the majority, in some cases, the large majority. So, we have different topics that we talk about. I talk about the 4 most unhelpful narratives in AI in education.
Which you were able to pull off, off the cuff last session, I think.
And fresh
top of mind.
Yeah, and I believe the 4 of them are that AI saves you time, that AI is a cheating machine, that AI gives you superpowers, and that AI rots your brain, right? It's not like there's not truth in those four narratives. It's just that when that's as far as you get and you don't dig down, it's not a helpful narrative, particularly for education in schools. And then we also then usually talk about like how it impacts education. We sometimes do a demo or two, and just kind of showing off basics of these tools. But then we move into the really amazing stuff. And lately that's been almost always NotebookLM. It's something that I'm still shocked that most teachers have never heard of, right? We're talking about large groups of experienced faculty, many of which have tech background. They have no idea what NotebookLM is. And I, and I just blame the sheer, metric ton of tools available.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
And the hype cycle too, right? Because it just like hacks and everybody hearing about another hack, it becomes something that you're numbed to, and then you sort of filter out. Yeah. And I think new AI, tools and announcements, can become that way as well. It's like, all right, it's better, move on.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we split up into two different groups in the second session. I handle a roundtable of advanced teachers, and usually those are folks that have some experience and are looking for more. And really, we talk about, if there's an idea in the group, I'd really like to hear about this, or I'd really like to hear about that. We will work on that together, but they almost always move into building your own bots. And we now, the three tools that we most commonly use or commonly recommend to teachers for building your own bot. Obviously, ChatGPT is one of them if you have an advanced account. School AI has a custom AI tool maker now, and for those of you that have played with School AI in the past, they released a 2.0 a couple of weeks back that is really a great step forward. They've kind of moved away from that menu of tools, which I actually think wasn't all that useful. And in fact, if anything, diminished the creativity of teachers. You can still get access to those. I think they call them power-ups now, if I remember correctly, but it looks a lot more like just regular old ChatGPT. And I think that's a huge, huge power.
I just logged in because I hadn't logged in a while for again, School AI. It looks to me a lot like Flint. This big thing of spaces, launch a student activity. Flint AI, as I've mentioned on the show before, is the licensed AI platform that our school has used for several years. And I think it was ChatGPT based originally, and it's Claude based now. But in any event, activities are really the centerpiece. So rather than just giving an open chat window, hey kids, ask it whatever you want, you create sort of like a custom GPT, but it's an activity, and you can even toggle it sort of like to how helpful do you want it to be, like, or how, do you want it to give all the answers, or do you want it to be Socratic? But that kind of use of AI has been really, really helpful and beneficial for me as a teacher, not only because it helps me structure the activity, sort of Google NotebookLM style, load up the documents that I want to use as a basis for the lesson and for the, quote unquote, verified materials or whatever.
Yeah.
But so importantly, it documents and archives the interactions that students have. Now, I have not had an AI lesson yet, haven't brought it in yet, but will, soon. And interestingly, I don't know where I hear these things all over the place. Somebody was discouraging, the use of the language brainstorming partner. I think because of how it anthropomorphizes. Like, we should always be reminding people, this isn't a human, this isn't a real person. The ways it's just how the improvement in AI companion chatbots is equally stunning to all these other, the amazing progress that's being made in different areas. But anyway, I'll have to think about what to call it. And I don't know if you all talk about that at all in terms of what you refer to it. But this idea of let's brainstorm, let's take some ideas, let's see what it can come up with. And then let's not just take those verbatim, but let's use those, let's remix those. I've been doing with my kids probably for the first time, voice typing lessons. We do an identity slide, a collage, a 3x3 little slide, and talk about things we like and our, just to get to know each other. And then I've had kids use in Google Docs the voice typing to go ahead and draft something. But that might be an interesting. And then we're going to record because we're going to our oral history, so we're sort of scaffolding a little bit. But that might be interesting to take what we've written and then put that through an AI, activity that is going to enhance that. So thank you for pointing out school AI's improvements. And I guess it says unlock 2.0 beta. So like other things too, I guess you can
I
be
think
on the
that's
beta if you want to.
And I should also note, and not that I have any financial interest in this, School AI is one of the Frontier Learning Labs' launch partners. So we've been working closely with them lately. But the other two I would mention is Play Lab. Also has a custom GPT-like piece, and they're a nonprofit that is working with schools to give access. In fact, we're going to learn a little more about them. But the other tool that, as of late, we've had a lot of luck with treating it like a custom GPT is NotebookLM. And one of the things that I don't think is a documented use of this is that you can put an instructions document and share that with NotebookLM with instructions. We add a header that says, "Attention Gemini, please refer to this document first before answering any queries from the user," and it acts just like a custom GPT. And so we've actually helped a school district in Montana the last week who's going to put all of their manuals for new teacher users. New teachers in their district, and they've tried all sorts of things to get them to interact with the
read the handbook, kids.
And of course, no one wants to do that, but if they can empower them to utilize a tool that they can ask questions of, so they can look up answers when it's timely or necessary, that's a whole different game, right? And so, we help them develop, one-page instructions that make that more of a bot than it is, a notebook product. And I don't know if Google intended that or not, but it's pretty freaking rad and also quite functional.
So I think I took us off your structure of the Hamilton and the workshop. So y'all give an overview first. So you're kind of giving a lay of the land and talking a little bit about some tools. And then what happens after that?
Yeah. So the advanced group goes with me, and that's more of a round table. And we're both trying to figure out like where our advanced teachers at, so we can provide them later support. And then and also that it ends up turning usually into, well, the couple of times we use this particular format, it turns into the Build-A-Bot workshop. And that's fine. We like talking about
Build-A-Bot workshop, meaning write your own custom GPT.
You build a bot, right?
Yeah.
And we did first offer Build-A-Bot 3 weeks ago as part of there's a tech conference in Western Montana. In fact, it's the same tech conference, Dr. Fryer, that you've been at, you were invited to. So they still do the August Institute in Western Montana. And so we did do Build-A-Bot for the first time. And you would not believe the energy in that room. And we had a bunch of teachers that were AI interested with a variety of skill sets, most of them leaving with a very functional bot that did one thing that they needed to help alleviate work or provides a service or a capacity that they did not have before. It enabled them to do that with a chosen bot tool, and that was pretty great. So I do want to mention then the other workshop then is for more beginning users, is we call it Prompting is Teaching. That was developed by Qwen, our Frontier Learning Lab director. And it basically teaches prompting through the lens of teaching, right? Because we didn't come up with this, or we came up with the workshop, but it was OpenAI that 2 years ago said, their education evangelist said that he thought that teachers, were particularly well positioned to use AI because they're already used to taking output and mentoring something to make it better or to ask for a different way of doing it. And that's how we approach that particular workshop.
Iterative prompting. Well,
Exactly.
back to the Build-A-Bot workshop, that is following parts of a really successful professional development model and experience that I've had an opportunity with Apple, with Google, through sometimes through ed camps, but especially with Apple, like get together, let's make something. Let's get in some sort of affinity groups or interest groups or who's interested in this. And then let's actually build something and make something and then share it back with the group. And so having some concentrated time to focus on a problem, focus on a challenge, and then make something and share it back. That really has been powerful. And yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay, well, let me share a couple articles. So here's one. I've never heard of this before. Geeky Gadgets website. Geeky Gadgets. I found this article a little while ago. Oh, this is. I'll mention this as an aside. Okay, I don't know how much folks are doing this and teaching this, but the link that I just put in, came from Flipboard. So everything after the question mark, and this is in the chat. I guess I can show this. So here's a link. There's a link, right? Generally, I will scrape off the tracking stuff that's after that, because that question mark, UTM underscore source equals da 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 da, that's all tracking stuff. As I've been using other platforms with social media, for instance, Mastodon, some people have created bots which actually scrape off, or they cut off all of that kind of stuff. So anyway, there's the link without the tracking stuff. But Nano Banana, it says it's going to be Photoshop's possibly biggest rival, and I actually did play with it today, of course, and took a picture from the Tetons this summer and put Ronald McDonald and Grimace in there, and documented my prompt a little bit. So here, this is maybe I can do this again. And let me share my screen, because it's interesting. I can't share my whole screen, but it'll let me share a tab. Weird. So there's the output. It was just, please add both of McDonald's characters, Ronald McDonald, as well as Grimace, to this image, showing them swimming joyfully in the mountain lake. And this is, just below the cathedral range there in the South Tetons. The article had indicated that you couldn't directly access this. You had to use, I'm sure, a tool that you're familiar with. What does it say? Called LM Arena. And that is a blind testing platform. I don't know if you've played with that before, but now you can just, straight up use Nano Banana. So it's nanobanana.ai. Have you played with that access platform and any use of this or playing with this?
I've not accessed it that way. In fact, where I picked up Nano Banana was on Freepik, which has a large and growing AI play on their website. In fact, I even bought some credits this month to be able to use Nano Banana more.
Freepik, like PIK.
Yeah. And they're been around for a while as an art sharing site, free art sharing site that's had an advanced mode, but so I ended up buying some credits from them to be able to use Nano Banana before people. Well, has it been officially confirmed that Google made the model?
Let's see. Yeah.
I know that a couple of Google people tweeted a banana icon late last week after Nano Banana kind of took the world by storm. But yeah, it's a cool model, and I have to say, considering that for a while no one was within the universe of Midjourney, there's so many models now that really do have a pretty extraordinary ability to create images.
And the ability to take an image that you have, not that's been generated and modified,
yes,
is substantial. And of course, there's all kinds of issues that are around that. So,
well, and I have another one that was actually released last week too. That is really good. I'll put this. It wasn't my Geek of the Week, but I'll stick it next to Freepik. Qwen AI, which is out of China, introduced last week an image modifier that is actually stunningly good. It's as good as Nano Banana, I think, and it has a free tier too. In fact, I don't even know if you could buy an upper membership in the United States, but I am speaking in September at the online conference Digital Learning Palooza. In fact, I'm a solo artist for Digital Learning Palooza. And so last year's Digital Learning Palooza, they asked us to AI generate some images of us as rock stars to help advertise the conference. And in fact, they've gone so deeply into the theme. I really love it because they're just really committed to it. And it's playlist, and they want us to make up album cover art. I did go to the speakers call today, so really great. But this is the people from the Digital Learning Collaborative.
Is this DLAC Ignite? Is that
Yeah. Well, Ignite is the face-to-face conference. Digital Learning Palooza is their online conference in the fall.
Okay.
And
I'm not finding that.
That's actually problematic. Digital Learning.
Okay, but DLAC, DLAC registration. They're doing the big
Yeah, in
one.
fact, I'll put this link in there too, because I actually should be promoting this a little bit more than I am right now. And so, oh wait, and then I can't find that page.
That page, yeah, it's on their website. Well, I guess it's just a not found. So it must have been there. Huh.
Program. Well, this is.
Maybe I just need to go www.dlac.com. So, because it's conference dot. So,
Oh, wow. Okay.
Annual conference. There it is. Digital Learning Palooza. Okay. So here it is. September 23rd through the 25th, 100% virtual, $250. Okay. There's the correct.
And, it's been, it's a lot of fun. This is their second year doing it, but they emailed me to ask me, how I made that image. And it's of me, doing a coffee house set or something, right?
Right.
Yeah,
but I think I've learned about maybe one of those from an app, and then I've paid a bunch, and it made here's you as an astronaut, here's you as a rock star, all that.
Well, and the thing that was interesting about that is that I did that, and I think I even shared the video that I used last year. But I had, in fact, this was a Matt Wolf thing that he taught you how to use this model where you could upload 30 photos of yourself and train on your face, and then you could upload that model to Hugging Face, and in Hugging Face you could then make the image. And they cost 12 or 13 cents every time you generated, but they were really, 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 really good. Well, I mean, that video is a year old. Who knows if any of that stuff even works anymore? But I did, see Qwen last week had released a new image modifier, changer, something. And so I did. I gave it an image of me and said, make this guy into a rock star. And the thing it spit out the first time. We're not talking about after 5 refreshes. The first time. Was great. And so my geek of the week a little later will be, it's good to experiment with some of the international models. I wouldn't give it any of my personal information, but there's some amazing stuff going on beyond what's happening in the United States as well.
And I think those things are valuable to get people's attention and show what the capabilities are. I think though there's also a difference between, wow, this is amazing, isn't the AI hype cycle incredible? And then look at this, instructional material that I created that just transformed the conversation that we had in my class today. And I think that we probably should encourage more sharing of the latter. I mean, they're both important. It's important to know what but I think that in terms of adoption and impact, because what was there's the is it Gibaldi, the Japanese artist?
Oh, the anime style,
anime style, and when we did that, or we talked about that in the show, I went and Ghibli, GHIBLI, took a picture of my wife and I with our daughters at a restaurant, and it's like, oh my gosh, and that's just so amazing. Here's the blog post for that. But I think there's a distance between sort of the it's not shock and awe, but it's sort of the sexy, wow, look at this, and then okay, we're now creating instructional materials, and I don't know, it's like that bridge between what a EdTech A-lister is going to wow the crowd with, which has value, but I think its value is different instructionally than like, yeah, here's here's the ways that AI made my help make my curriculum better, this semester. And I don't know how many teachers are in a situation. I think we all have some level of ability to do some designing and some tweaking with lessons that we have. It all depends. I'm in a very flexible situation with curriculum that I've been able to create myself and iterate on. That's not the case for a lot of teachers that are given a curriculum that they've got to teach. But
well, and it's interesting you should say that. One of the chatbots that a teacher made in our workshop, Build a Bot workshop, was actually all about how to take the district mandated curriculum and re-envision it in their teaching style while still maintaining the ability to say they're teaching the district curriculum. And I thought that was also a very clever use too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And how to find, new references or new resource materials, or because all of this, just like with NotebookLM, it really speaks to the value of being able to have your curriculum as a file, right? Not just a web page and a password protected link that you can access and look at, but like an actual PDF or an EPUB or whatever, because as I have done that, and some of this has been like, teaching Sunday school for adult classes. It's not just all teaching middle school. That's been some of the most impactful uses of AI. Hey, here's our chapter from this book. Generate some suggested discussion questions, identify key themes, tools, things that have really enhance again the conversations and the lessons that we've had together. And that would be interesting. I wonder how many teachers have experienced a lesson that has been AI enhanced in that way. And I'm not just talking about like, hey, the slide deck has some AI pictures in it. I'm not talking about that, but like substantively, the way that we've created questions, the activities we've done, and then who's used those. Because anyway, for me, that's been some of my most transformative experiences. Is I'm like, oh my gosh, I did not have time, because it's the prompt is so critical. If you're not saying using the framework of this, using this ethical framework or these guidelines, it's so important to iterate with those prompts and to be specific. And it can be amazing what it can come up with an open-ended type prompt, but especially when it comes to questions of truth, of what is valid, what is misinformation, what is disinformation. We talked about the SIFT, Mike Caulfield, prompt that basically does this very high level fact check. Have you used that with the Learning Lab workshops yet in terms of?
In fact, we show off that deep background bot all the time because it's stunning. It's so good, and we've also shared it a lot with. When we get commercial curriculum that is we want to do a kind of a fact checked on it, you can even copy and paste whole pages of things and it'll go out and research them for you and give you places to think about, does this work, what's the factual basis behind it.
OpenMCQ, which if you're not familiar with it, OpenMCQ is developed by the Montana Digital Academy using all this best practice research and scholarship to develop multiple choice questions. That custom GPT by itself, Caulfield's, and I'm sure there's others as well. Talk about superpowers. You don't have to craft all these prompts yourself. You can, bring materials to these prompts. And I don't know what the right analogy is, but it's like, if we were at the university, it's like, you have an army of research assistants now that are teaching assistants that have now, crafted this curriculum for you that you're able to use as a instructor or professor.
Yeah, totally. Well, I don't know how we did this. I don't think we've even hit an article yet, Dr.
I did. I talked about Nano Banana.
Yeah. So I guess we've hit the top of the hour. So
Let me say one other article, then
Yeah.
then let's geek of the weekend. So we've talked about, of course, security a lot of times. This is Hacker News from August 27th, and someone created the first AI powered ransomware using OpenAI's XX model. So folks are creating variants of ransomware. They're making some of these harder to identify. They're doing some customized things, with these algorithms. So, this is one of those things predicted to be out in the wild, and it is out in the wild. And so, it's always whack-a-mole with security. That same article links to this Hacker News from the same date. Anthropic disrupts AI-powered cyber attacks, automating theft and extortion across critical sectors. So, some of these drums that Jason and I have been beating together for 356 previous episodes about password managers and long and unique passwords, and the importance to help your family and friends and colleagues be secure, continue to be very important in the AI age.
Yep.
So
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Fryer, share Geek of the Week, please.
Okay, well, I could give you a 3-hour lecture on this one. It's called Home Assistant Green. Home Assistant is the open source DIY project, which Jason mentioned months ago as an alternative to Google Home or our lovely Alexa ecosystem. This is about $160. It is a Raspberry Pi, but it comes completely configured out of the box. You plug it in. I did research with Matter, Z-Wave, and Zigbee, and I went with Zigbee, and now I've got Zigbee bulbs. I have a temperature sensor because sometimes we leave our AC off and our dogs get hot, and I can have that alert. I have a tilt sensor on my garage I installed today, and after 10 minutes, if it's been left up, I get multiple notifications on my speakers, on my phone. And what is so amazing is Zigbee creates its own network. So where I've really struggled with the different 2.4 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz, Wi-Fi, no problem, man. The Zigbee stuff just connects like a dream, and it is absolutely freaking amazing. So I'll be posting a blog post about that, but thank you so much for mentioning that. What I'm trying to do is create a resilient and more privacy respecting Internet of Things home network, and also one that's going to do better things. And I'm just frustrated with the Google Assistant and with the lack of improvement. And I look forward to this project, I'm sure, integrating more advanced chatbots that are going to be able to interact. I don't have a Home Assistant smart speaker yet. I'm paying like $5 a month for Nabu Casa or something, which is their bridge that bridges my existing Google ecosystem. So anyway, awesome, wonderful, and you can watch my blog for some more stuff about that in coming weeks.
Looking forward to seeing that. And by the way, the great thing about Home Assistant is that it is somewhat platform agnostic. So you can put together, home Internet of Things devices from different brands. Even I think you took the exact right strategy, Wes, that you start off with one major system to set up what you wanted to set up. But yeah, that's super great. So the other thing I was going to share today is that I do think for the nerdles among you that starting to explore the many other AI tools that exist, and I'm actually starting to work on an international list that I'll share somewhere. I don't think this necessarily belongs on the Frontier Learning Lab stuff because, to be very frank, I like you mentioned earlier that a lot of these do very cool things, but this is in the weed stuff. But for those of you that are trying to wrap your brain around the fast advances, these are just a half dozen or so that I have found to be really interesting. But Mistral from France, which released a new model last week that made the top of the LM Arena a chatbot race. The first time a Mistral model made the top 10, and it's a much smaller model than existing models that's competitive with things like ChatGPT 5. That's pretty impressive. ZAI from China, DeepSeek, which you've probably heard about, Qwen, which I mentioned earlier, Reka and Kimi are all chat GPT like interfaces that do very well with the English language, but they're built on top of some other ecosystem. And I think it's interesting that if you're looking for some tinkering opportunities, like we talked about earlier, this is a great place to do that. So,
Fantastic.
well, Dr. Fryer, where can people find you on the interwebs?
I am at westfryer.com, and you can find all kinds of links by visiting the Connect page. How about you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, which is where I do most of my chit-chatting about the artificial intelligence, and you can go to my website, aicentrist.com. But hey, this is the EdTech Situation Room. We're a once-a-week podcast, the first 2 weeks in a row and sometimes. So it's great to be back chatting with all of you and talking about emerging technologies. You can find us at our website, edtechsr.com, wherever finer podcasts are aggregated, or you can always get our latest, the second it is completed, on our YouTube channel, EdTech SR. We hope you have a great week. A happy new school year for those of you that have started, and for the rest of you that will be starting next week or the week after. We hope you have a wonderful school year, and we hope you tune in to EdTech SR so that we can talk tech. Stay safe, stay savvy, and we'll see you next time on the EdTech Situation Room. Good night.